what do you think are the few most important points or Tuesday tips for anyone as a leader of volunteers in their everyday job, if they're going to design a survey, ideally helping themselves by using the VSI, but if someone's designing a survey and using the VSI, what are the few most important things you want them to keep in mind as they do that?
Well, if you're designing a survey, I think you have to just know the limitations of what you're looking at. Excel is actually could become pretty good at its minimal analytics. Like you can actually do some minimal things, but if once you design a survey, and there's some good YouTube versions of YouTube that can help you with that. I think one of the things with surveys that people need to be really just cautious of is, if you decide to do a homegrown satisfaction survey, which I'm not a fan of, clearly, because I understand the science that needs to go behind it, you have to recognize that you may not be measuring what you're measuring and to take it with a grain of salt. The other thing, because it skews high, you have to really keep that in mind. With the volunteer satisfaction, with regular paid work, a satisfaction scale like in Gallup, you have a 7-point scale, you're going to find employees who fall below midline. You rarely, if ever, find that in the volunteer satisfaction index. Everything goes kind of between about 5.5 to 7. There's a lot of reasons we could probably theorize, and we do theorize about why that conclusion. Dissatisfied volunteers are likely to self-select out because they don't need to be there. And we are like, they don't need to take that, right? So they self-select out. And this is another interesting body of research. Some people could depend on the sector where volunteering is. Feel like maybe volunteering shouldn't be satisfied. It's not puppies and rainbows, and I shouldn't be satisfied. So they're like, well, I'm fine. So there's a couple reasons why it skews high, but it skews high. So if you're making a homegrown survey, and you're like, our volunteers are 5 out of 7. That's great. Be cautious, because it's probably low-hanging fruit that most satisfied volunteers are going to give you 7s. If you start to go anything down, you're seeing potentials there. People are going, yeah, it's pretty good, but there's a little bit of but there. And that's where in the paid work, 5 would be like, oh, we're good. And in unpaid work, you really do. Those are red flags. Those are cautionary tales, because those are things that are potential dissatisfiers that are causing somebody to say everything's good, but that thing.
Exactly. And I think using something that's a proven model and tool like VSI, like this is, and hopefully this helps get an awareness of the usefulness of this tool, and have at it and have it help decide your annual or however often you're doing a volunteer satisfaction surveys. I've seen over and over again poor survey design that is unconsciously setting up what people want to hear about their volunteers. And so like you're talking about, it's going to skew high. I think that's so important, especially as a Tuesday tips that previews the longer part of our conversation, which really dives into this, that there has to be a weighted balance. Like any data-driven thing or any academic thing, like what are your variables, and what are you going to have to weigh out for trends that are going to skew high or low. And again, hopefully people use the VSI as their primary design tool for their surveys, and not try to just kind of accidentally cherry pick. Well, of course, everyone loves to have a party. The same 30 people show up every year to our party, and we have 3,000 volunteers. So, I think being mindful of our own biases, it's most useful to use a proven tool like Volunteer Satisfaction Index that's already designed, than people trying to come up with a survey creation anxiety on their own. So I really appreciate those Tuesday tips.